Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. But we're not going to start with a person tonight, but with a place. The Elwood Adams Hardware Store, which is dying now at the age of 235. It is the oldest hardware store in America, and it is shutting its doors. Here is CBS News on the Elwood Adams Hardware Store in Worcester, Massachusetts.
At the Elwood Adams Hardware Store in Worcester, Massachusetts, the hellos come quick.
How's it going? Good. Oh, yeah. Good.
The so longs take some time.
Thanks again,
Thanks,
Fran.
Andy. I appreciate it.
Sarah, you guys.
And while going out of business signs are nothing new, there's something different about this brick-and-mortar shop's closing.
Just coming in to say goodbye and get some last-minute items.
Ed Wilk's been a customer for 30 years. A drop in the bucket for a place that's been around since 1782, before George Washington was president. The big sellers back then? Clock bells and pinions. It's the oldest continuously open hardware store in America. And on October 20th, it's shutting its doors for good.
Thanks for the business over the years.
It's definitely a sad day in Worcester when we have to see a store with this heritage closed.
Daniel Waldo was the first proprietor, followed by Henry W. Miller. Elwood Adams took over in 1886. His son in 1947.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Fran.
It's like Cheers without the beer.
And
Thanks, Dave.
Everyone knows their names.
different.
See ya.
Take care.
Thank
guys.
you.
Fran Neal has been store manager for 42 years.
It's all about the relationships we've made over the years. We've made a lot of good friends. We know about our customers, and they know a little bit about us.
Mark Lannon's the assistant manager, a newbie. He started a mere 35 years ago. You can find a lot in a hardware store, but for the guys, one request stands out.
I think the strangest one I ever had is a woman wanted a pole installed in her house. She was a stripper and she wanted to practice at home. We had the pole, but we did not install it.
What began during the Revolutionary War will end because of another revolution, says city manager Ed Augustus.
I think Amazon or the larger big box stores probably just been too much to compete against. They're a great presence and a real point of pride having the oldest hardware store in America here on our Main Street. Something we've all been proud of and we're going to miss.
From centuries to a matter of days, Elwood Adams will soon be history.
Take care.
And people saying hi to familiar faces bid goodbye
Thank you.
to a way of life.
It's a beautiful store. I'm sorry to see it go.
Well, we're going to move on now to Danielle Darrieux, who died recently at the age of 100, one of the greatest French film stars of the 20th century. Most of her work was done in the 1930s and 40s, and most of it was done in France. She only made infrequent visits to the United States, so she's not well known to American filmgoers, but she was Brigitte Bardot before there was Brigitte Bardot, and a far better actress as well. Here's the Los Angeles Times on Danielle Darrieux. Danielle Darrieux, a prolific French actress whose movie and theater career spanned 8 decades, has died at the age of 100. One of France's best-loved actresses, Darrieux appeared in dozens of plays and more than 100 films during her long career. Generations of French moviegoers watched her mature from a precocious, fresh-faced teen into a radiant nonagenarian starring in films into her 90s. Darrieux was born in May of 1917 in the southwestern city of Bordeaux. Her father, an ophthalmologist, died when she was 7, and her mother supported the family by giving singing lessons. Darrieux was just 14 when she made her screen debut with a supporting role in 1931's La Balle. With her expressive face, liquid eyes, and original, slightly nasal voice, Darrieux quickly became a favorite of French directors, appearing in films by heavyweights Claude Chabrol, Jacques Demy, and André Techin. She starred in legendary Austrian-born director Billy Wilder's first film, Mauvais Grand, a 1934 gangster movie in French. Darrieux played the leading lady in more than half a dozen movies by Frenchman Henri Decoing. They married in 1935 and divorced 6 years later. A second marriage to Dominican playboy Porfirio Rubirosa, who was romantically linked to Zsa Zsa Gabor, Ava Gardner, and a host of other screen sirens, lasted 5 years. Her third marriage to her screenwriter husband lasted more than 40 years. Darrieux made a brief transatlantic escapade appearing in 1938 Hollywood flop The Rage of Paris before returning to France. A later American engagement, in which she replaced Katherine Hepburn in Coco, a Broadway show about Coco Chanel, also met with little success. As reserved in real life as she was fiery on the screen, Darrieux shunned the spotlight, spending much of her time in a village in the French countryside. She described battling her natural shyness throughout her career and often appeared visibly shaken during interviews. "I am very simple, perhaps too simple for this," she told television in 1972. "This whole thing, the interviews, it's too much for me." Darrieux insisted that she couldn't bear to see herself on screen, and that the only one of her movies she enjoyed watching was Max Ophuls' critically acclaimed 1953 Madame de, in which she played the eponymous heroine, a dazzling adulterous countess. As she grew older, Darrieux was increasingly cast not as a leading lady, but as the star's mother and later grandmother. In one of her later roles, Darrieux reaffirmed her status as one of France's all-time cinema greats. In the 2002 whodunit musical extravaganza 8 Women, she played a matriarch reigning over a nearly all-female cast of some of France's greatest actresses, including Catherine Deneuve.
We mentioned Porfirio Rubirosa, who was one of her husbands. He was quite the playboy. He was from the Dominican Republic. He was a race car driver, a polo player. Some say he was an assassin for Trujillo. He was married 5 times. He made a career of marrying rich women, including Doris Duke and Barbara Hutton. He lived the high life, but he was killed when his Ferrari 250 crashed into a tree after a night of celebration after one of his race car successes. Definitely the prototype of the 1950s playboy.
Let's just say he left a string of women behind him, and Danielle Darrieux was one of them. Well, we're going to move on now to Robert Guillaume, who died recently at the age of 89. Great actor, a real craftsman. He could do either comedy or drama, and he could work on television or in the theater. He was a nice African-American boy out of St. Louis. He attended Washington University and St. Louis University for a while. He was the first African-American actor to win the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series and Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. And he also was nominated for a Tony on Broadway for Guys and Dolls, and also did a wonderful job in Phantom of the Opera when he took over from Michael Crawford. But he's best known for his character Benson DuBois, who started out on Soap and then got his own spin-off Benson, where he played the governor's butler and eventually worked his way up, and this made him a household name. Here's the theme song from Benson. Here's his introduction in the pilot.
"This is some place you got here. I came here as a favor to Mrs. Tate. And the dogs tried to kill me, the gardener tried to drown me, the security men searched me, and now I got a stormtrooper after my shoes."
You must be Benson.
Why must I be Benson?
Well, the only other black the governor has an appointment with is tomorrow with the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and everyone knows what he looks like.
Well, that would make me Benson.
Here he talks about how he tried to play the role.
Dignity did not make people laugh, and I wanted desperately to make people laugh. And so I found a way to say what I was going to say in the script without demeaning black people or myself. Also, at the same time, I found a way to do comedy that I don't think many blacks had found before that. And that was that you could be yourself and make people laugh. I knew this man, and I knew that he did not, under any circumstances, want to work for white people. But I didn't have to say any of that. I didn't have to make it a racial thing. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to go there. But what I think I struck was a chord in a lot of people who feel that the boss can go to hell on the weekend. You know, I don't care what happens. Forget him. So I found a way to say what I was going to say, and you could hear the curse words ringing in the character.
But he also did drama. About a decade later, he was part of a 2-year Aaron Sorkin primetime show called Sports Night, where he played the managing editor of a television show. He said that was his favorite role.
I think I'm proud most of my work on Sports Night, because I think it has defined something about how I like to play in front of the camera. In a way, not even Benson did. I feel that some of the things I did on Benson are in Sports Night. but they weren't seen that way because Benson was thought of as simply a sitcom. But I think if people go back and look at it, they say, how did this guy do that? How could he make us laugh? And he was so serious, which was my aim.
Like I say, a Craftsman, that show got canceled too early because Aaron Sorkin wanted to work on West Wing. Robert Guillaume had a minor stroke. But here's a quite timely monologue that he had on the show.
Earlier in the show, we told you about Roland Shepard and the 6 other players who were dropped from their team and then their school for refusing to play football under the Confederate flag. Here's Isaac Jaffe, managing editor of Sports Night, with an editorial comment.
Thank you, Casey. Exaudio, compario, conloquor. That's a Latin phrase that translates to listen, to learn, to speak. Those words are carved into the stone arches that form the entrance to the undergraduate library at Tennessee Western University. This afternoon, an extraordinary young man named Roland Shepard made what had to have been an excruciating decision. He said he wasn't playing football under a Confederate flag. 6 of his teammates then chose not to let Shepard stand alone, and I choose to join them at this moment. In the history of the South, there's much to celebrate, and that flag is a desecration of all of it. It's a banner of hatred and separatism. It's a banner of ignorance and violence and a war that pitted brother against brother. And to ask young black men and women, young Jewish men and women, Asians, Native Americans, to ask Americans to walk beneath its shadow is a humiliation of irreducible proportions. And we all know it.
And finally, here's how Robert Guillaume wanted to be remembered.
I guess that I would like for them to think of that I'd always played truth. To me, that is the sine qua non, that I be true to what I'm playing. And that's why I talked about the word dignity. I don't like dignity. I like truth. I'm not trying to dignify anybody or anything, but I am trying to be true. I think there's dignity in truth, but not necessarily truth in dignity. Some people might disagree that the word dignity inherently involves truth. I don't think so. I think that no matter what character I play, I would like to be true to.
Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT Gene Sid Tepps. I'm going to close tonight with Skip Haynes, who died recently at the age of 70, and he is a rock and roll immortal in Chicago because he is the man who wrote and sang one of the great Chicago rock and roll songs, not only written here, but is about here. In 1970, he was part of the short-lived group Aliotta Haynes Jeremiah, and he is responsible for Lakeshore Drive.
You would be Skip Haynes.
Yes, I am.
You were part of Aliotta Haynes Jeremiah.
Yes, Aliotta Haynes Jeremiah.
You were born in Chicago, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
I bet every Chicagoan could sing the words to this thing.
I think so. It's mind-boggling. It's a matter to me. Anyway, right on Lakeshore Drive. First thing I do when I come to Chicago, take a ride, because Lakeshore Drive has been very, very good to me. So I ride down it every time I come in. It's kind of like rubbing Buddha's belly for me, you know what I mean? We were driving down Lakeshore Drive with my manager, Arthur Belkine, in 1970 maybe, at about 4 o'clock in the morning in January in an Opel GT. And we were going down Lakeshore Drive talking about how wonderful Lakeshore Drive was. Mostly because it was like 4 lanes wide and you could really blow it in the middle of January, do 3 donuts, still make your exit and not get killed. And I just sat down and really just wrote our conversation. And I went to the club the next day. We were playing at a place called the Gate of Horn, which is on Briar and Broadway. And I leaned down and I played it to him. And it was just our conversation. I never intended the song to be played again, ever.
You didn't think it was going to be a hit when you first wrote it?
Didn't think it was going to be a hit. You know what happened? We did it. A year later, we forgot about it. We didn't put it in the repertoire. And Arthur, our manager, just a year later, calls us up on a Friday morning and says, you got to learn Lakeshore Drive. We said, why? He said, because they just went on it on the radio, and there's 1,000 reservations for the club. And we didn't know the song, so we had to go downtown to Road Records. And the kid behind the counter didn't know us. We had to buy our own album at list price to learn the songs. That's how much we knew Lakeshore Drive. I played guitar, and I was the lead singer. John Jeremiah played piano. He did not sing on it. And Mitch Aliotta played bass. Rock and roll.
And the sun shines fine in the morning time. Tomorrow is another day. And there ain't no road just like it. Anywhere I found. Running south on Lakeshore Drive. Getting into the town. Just sneaking on my own LSD. Fighting that trouble down.